shore side. I've been thinking from the finite, when the finer things in life are with you. Grinning like a child, soaking in the sun, running in circles like I'm happy and young. Awestruck revival, ain't no youthful that's brave. If your soul is on fire, don't doubt it will stay. You are inspiring, you're filling my lungs. I'm starstruck because your pockets are full of the dust that we come from. I've been searching for some sunlight in the middle of the summertime. I've been thinking from the finite, when the finer things in life are with you. Grinning like a child, soaking in the sun, running in circles like I'm happy in young. Awestruck revival, ain't no youthful that's brave. If the soul is on fire, don't doubt it will stay. Good morning, Suncoast. Let's sing it out. I've been dreaming of falling asleep while singing in love to a progressive beat. I can't wait for the promised land, standing on the beach, my friends and my foes and the sand at my feet. I've been dreaming of falling asleep while singing in love to a progressive beat. I can't wait for the promised land, standing on the beach with my friends and my foes and the sand at my feet. Come on! I've been dreaming of falling asleep while singing in love to a progressive beat. I can't wait for the promised land, standing on the beach with my friends and my foes and the sand at my feet. Grinning like a child, awestruck revival, ain't no youthful that's free. If your soul is on fire, don't doubt it will stay. Awestruck revival, ain't no youthful that's free. If your soul is on fire, don't doubt it will stay.
There is a fountain wrapped in a haze of light, flooded with goodness, rushing with words of life, and they yield to the bowl. They're sweet to my soul,
tainted heart and take these tainted hands and wash me in your love and come like grace again. 'Cause even when my strength is lost, well, I'll praise you. And even when I have no song, well, I'll praise you. And even when it's hard to find the words louder than I sing your praise, I will only sing desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Through the fire, I'll persevere. I won't submit to any fear. 'Cause where I go, you've been before. And all my trust is in you, Lord. And now until forever, Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you. I'm desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Say now until forever, Jesus, I surrender. Show me what I don't know, more of you. I'm desperate for your presence, longing to be with you. Lead me to a new place, more of you. Holy is your name. Lead me to you. And lead me to you. Forever, Lord, I will pursue. I will pursue. And you are my heart. And Jesus, you're all that I want. All that I want. Oh, lead me to you. Forever, Lord, I will pursue. And I will pursue, yeah. You want, oh, you want my heart. Jesus, you're all that I want. All that I want. Oh, lead me to you. Forever, Lord, I will pursue. I will pursue your word. You are my heart. Jesus, you're all that I want. Oh,
within. The Prince of Peace came bursting through the wind. The violent sky held its breath, and in your light I found rest. Sailing through the night, riding on the storm, staring down the fire. My eyes found yours, shining like the stars, striding through my fear. The Prince of Peace met me there. Heard my prayer. Hold like the sunlight piercing through the dark. The Prince of Peace came and broke into my heart. The violent cross, the empty grave, and in your light I found grace. Come on, tearing through the night, riding on the storm, staring down the fire. My eyes found yours, shining like the sun, striding through my fear. The Prince of Peace met me there. And you're always there. And you hear my prayer. Find comfort in that fact, that no matter what, He was always there. Let's sing this out together. Your love surrounds me when my thoughts are wage war. When night screams carry, then your voice will roar. Come death or shadow, God, I know your peace will meet me there. When fear comes knocking, there you'll be, my God. When day breaks y'all so much for singing with us this morning. It's amazing to be here with you. Thank you. You may be seated.
It's good to see you here today. Thank you so much for being here. And it's a new year, and a lot of new things are happening. So let me just start by thanking all those who are watching this online. We have a huge online congregation streaming today, and we appreciate you taking time to tune in. But also thank you guys for being here. It's a great crowd. Today we're launching into a new series called Game of Thrones. And sometimes we use that, I know some of you know it's an HBO series, but it's not really here, that same thing. But we're using that, we're stealing that, and believe it or not, sometimes when we do this, we get flagged, and we have to change the name of it, because, but we'll see, we feel complimented every time they flag us. At least we know our internet presence is getting out there. But anyways, thank you so much for being here. Today, I want to start with a story of a customer who went to a pet shop, and when the man looked at the parrot in the cage, the parrot responded to this customer looking in and said this: "You are the ugliest man I have ever seen." And the customer was a little bit offended, so he went over to the owner of the store and said, "You got a parrot over here." This is what he said. The man said, "I'm so sorry." He went over and opened the cage up, and he took his and he just kind of flipped it on the beak. "Don't do that." So the owner walked off. The man looked back down at the parrot and thought, yeah. The parrot looked at him and said, "You are the ugliest man I've ever seen." So he went back over to the store. He said, "I don't think that works." So he comes over and he reaches in there and he kind of boxes the parrot's ears a little bit. Said, "Don't do that. Don't treat our customers that way." And the parrot didn't do anything. And finally, the owner walked back off, and the man thought, well, I'll just see if he fixed him. And he goes back over, and the parrot looks at him and says, "You are the ugliest man I've ever seen." So he goes and tells the owner again. He said, "Look, I'm just probably going to have to leave. Wait. So I know how to take care of this parrot." He opens up, and he just flails the parrot now. Feathers are flying everywhere, and it seems like, he's trying to get some satisfaction. And the customer doesn't go back over there. He just thinks, I'm going to take a minute, and shops around a little bit and does what he wants to do. And finally, when he's leaving the store, he stops by the parrot's cage one more time. He looks in there, and the parrot looks at him. He looks over, and there's the owner of the store, and the owner of the store is looking at the parrot. And he looks back at the man, looks back at the owner, looks back, and he goes, "You know." So when I see you leaving here today, I'm going to say, "You know." But here's the point of the story. Sometimes when I stand up to teach from a certain passage, it's only too familiar. And this is one of those times. This passage of Scripture, you already know it. I'd be surprised if you didn't. So we start with the beginning saying, well, tell us something new from this passage that we already know. Well, as we look at the theme of Game of Thrones, we're going to look at the Gospel of Matthew. The series is going to take us to the ancient world, and we'll see the tension among those vying for power in that day. We're going to study what Matthew has to say about the life of Jesus and how he entered the world to make a difference in our understanding and our perception. Not just perception, but perception of power. Much of what Jesus had to say back then was countercultural to that day. And if we listen to what he says and bring it to the 21st century, we'll find it still countercultural in our day. So, what is the passage that you know? Let me read it for you. "Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized by John. But John tried to deter him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? Jesus replied, let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness. Then John consented, and as soon as Jesus was baptized, he went up out of the water. At that moment, however, heaven was open, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, lighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, this is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. That's Matthew's version. John the Baptist was baptizing many in the Jordan. The religious leaders, they were arriving to check out what exactly was going on with this pseudo-prophet coming to the river to baptize people. And he was saying, you need to bring forth fruits to meet for repentance. And I read that and I go, what does that mean? I mean, what is John the Baptist looking for in these religious leaders and in these Jewish people? Well, let's look at Luke. Luke tells the same story. And in the one is the New International Version. This is the Message version. Listen to what Luke has to say. John, Zachariah's son, out in the desert at the time, received a message from God. He went through the country around the Jordan preaching a baptism of life. What about? A baptism that your life can be changed, that your life can be forgiven. And he describes it in the words beginning with Isaiah the prophet. Listen to what Isaiah said. Thunder in the desert. Prepare for God's arrival. Make the road smooth and straight. Every ditch is going to be filled in. Every bump smoothed out. All the detours straightened out. All the ruts paved over. Everyone will see the parade of God's salvation. I read that and I thought, sounds a lot like Clark Road. It doesn't it? I mean, or Proctor, or if you came down. But when the people come out for baptism, because it was a popular thing to do, John exploded. This gets a little more graphic. Brood of snakes. What do you think you're doing slithering down here to the river? Do you think a little water on your snake skins is going to deflect God's judgment? It's your life that needs to change, not your skin. And don't think you can pull rank by claiming that you're Abraham, that Abraham is your father. Being a child of Abraham is neither here nor there. Children of Abraham are a dime a dozen. God can make children from stones if he wants. What counts is your life. Is it green and flourishing? Because if it's dead wood, it goes on the fire. Then the crowd asks, well, what are we supposed to do? John's very specific. If you have 2 coats, give one away. Do the same with your food. The taxmen also were there, and he said, what should we do? He said, no more extortion. Collect only what's required by the law. And the soldier said, what are we to do? He said, no more harassment, no more blackmail. Be content with your rations. And the interest of the people was now building. They began to wonder, is John really the Messiah? And John says, he intervenes, he says, I am baptizing you in the river. But the main character, the one who is to come, is going to baptize with fire and the Spirit of God. He's going to clean house, make a clean sweep of your lives. He'll place everything true in its proper place. I'm just a stagehand leading up to him. And there was a lot more that he gave, but he put his heart into it. But then, after all the people were baptized, Jesus comes to him. This is Luke chapter 3. And as he's praying, after he prays, the skies open, the Spirit descends like a dove, and a voice is heard saying, you are my Son, chosen and marked by my love, pride of my life. Now, I love this story because it's a sermon in itself. And notice the response of the crowd, what should we do? And really, when it talks about clothing, clothing was a sign of wealth in that day. The more clothes you had, the more wealthy you were. They didn't have banks like we do or a lot of different things, properties like that, because it was just distributed among the tribes. But they could show their wealth with their clothing. So what should we do? If you have 2 coats, give one away. And if you have plenty of food, share it. In other words, all the wealth that you have, distribute it among other people. Share what you have, don't hoard it. And he said to the tax collectors, don't take too much. Don't extort from people. In other words, don't deceive people and lie to people and take more than you should. And soldiers, don't abuse your power to take advantage. I mean, John the Baptist was here giving these strong words to all the people, and Jesus comes in to kind of confirm what he's saying. And as we look at the story of the Game of Thrones, I want to ask a few questions, and they're in your notes. You can fill in the blank if you'd like. But here's the first question that I ask you, and I think you're going to find it to be the same as me. Here's the first question. How are we deterring Jesus? Well, first of all, let me explain what it means. What does it mean to deter someone? It means to dissuade. Okay, that's a good word. Or to prevent, to discourage, to block, to hinder, to distract someone from a mission. Jesus said, do what I want you to do. Baptize me, John. And John says, I think I have a better plan. Jesus says, baptize me. And John says, no, you baptize me. You see how this is going? And it tells us they possibly were related. Maybe they knew each other before. Maybe they were cousins. You baptize me. No, you baptize me. No. But I would tell you today, if Jesus came to me today and said, let's go out here in the lake, Church Lake, and I want you to baptize me. Boy, I would cringe, wouldn't you? I mean, that's just inappropriate. See, but what we want is Jesus to baptize us. Now, I'm in on that. What I really want, baptize me, fill me with wisdom, fill me with love, make me holy, indoctrinate us, heal us, baptize us, guide us, show us your plan. And it seems like, as I read this story, Jesus says we have that backward. We need to turn our thinking around. We're playing a game of thrones. Well, how so? Because that's all about my life. My throne, my power, my success. What are we to do? What Jesus wants us to consider is his role. What are we to do? We're to be Christ to the world. He's to point us to a greater love and service, pointing us to a connection that God is all around us. Jesus wants us to be the love and resource for the world, not to be the hoarders of all the love and resource in the world. Wait a minute. I want to be holy and all that God wants me to be. What about building me up to where, no, he's saying really what I want is for you to mirror me and pour myself out. You see, I would pray and ask Jesus to baptize me, just like I pray and ask God to do something for my circumstance. So here's, every now and then I have an original thought, and it's in your notes today. Here's the thought. I think the key statement for today is this. Become the one who does become the one who does what you expect God to do for you. It's been 2 long years. Folks, we have played the COVID trial for a long time, haven't we? I mean, even now, it's been years. Our emotions are raw. Our psyche's there. People that we know in the last couple of years have gotten sick. Some have died. Some have died alone. The isolation, things that have happened. The amount of mental illness that's occurred because of COVID, we don't know. The educational thing that's been damaged, we don't know. But as bad as the last 2 years has been, and it's been rough, and even now there's a new surge and all the things that are happening, has that been the only crisis in your life? No. It's just the latest one. It seems like the latest one's always the greatest one. I was just thinking, well, what's another crisis? And there are many. But just think about just a few years back, 2017. Remember Hurricane Irma? Of course you do. And where were you during Hurricane Irma? Some of you are thinking about where you were. And then I asked the question, did you lose power to your home? Many of you did. And just a question, how many of you left town when Irma was coming? Cowards. So, or smarter than me. Maybe that should be the right thing. So another question, how many of you came here for shelter on the hurricane? Just curious, there's quite a few came here. So how many of us wanted Irma to go somewhere else? Great. See, I remember the story of Jesus with his disciples in a small boat on the Sea of Galilee. The storm blew in, the disciples were freaking out, and Jesus is taking a nap. I find that interesting. And I begin to ask the question, when the storm blows in the boat of my life and I'm out there, am I napping or am I freaking out? And I will tell you, I'm the guy who wouldn't be napping. I'd want to figure out what's going on. In 2006, representing Suncoast, I went to Sarasota County at their request and talked to them about turning Suncoast into an evacuation center for Sarasota County. Suncoast, this building, if you don't know, was built to hurricane standards and is really a formidable building. And they said, your building is already to our standards. What could we do? Well, you've already done everything. I said, well, then what do you want from me? We want you to give us a contract to use your church for 20 years. I said, okay, what will you give me? Nothing. So I went, well, that doesn't seem to be a fair thing to do. So what did we decide to do? I talked to my architect and some church leaders, and I said, here's what I think we should do. If something happens in Sarasota County, rather than the government, which I appreciate living in Sarasota, I love it. I'm not digging the government. But what I do think that we could open a church-run shelter since we have the facility. In 2017, we opened Suncoast for the first time as a shelter in the upcoming storm. 416 people stayed here, 127 pets in crates, many of them for 2 nights. I want to thank those who helped, and many of you are here. I mean, you were wonderful. I think of Mark Feinhout, who had been trained by the state and how to do emergency management, and also Stan Dinwoody. They stepped in to help. Many checked in. Doors were handled, locked, coffee bar. So during that time of 2017, 2 quick stories. We had to shut down the building when the winds reached a certain speed. We locked it down. No one should come in, no one should go out. And it was about midnight, the storm was howling. I mean, really going, and I was out in the Grand Hall, and things were really finally quieting down. I saw a few people walk down the hall and then go down one of the corridors. And I saw another few people go down, and another few. I go, where are they going? So I followed them. I went down, when I looked down the corridor, one of the children, there was no one there. So I walked all the way down the end, and when I got closer to the exit doors, and the alcove is built in, there's walls on each side and a roof, but there's a little alcove where these doors were. And as I got closer, I could see a little glow from several people out there. You know, we've locked the thing down, and they're out there smoking. And I walked down the hall. They didn't see me because I was in the dark, but I could see their faces glowing. I began to go, I know this person, I know this person, I know this person. This one works for me. I'm not going to say Henley's name. But I did what every pastor should do in that circumstance. I thought, And you know how the loud noise of a deadbolt on those metal doors? Clack, clack. Their eyes got big and wide, and they thought, oh my gosh, we just been locked out in the hurricane. And I had a little flashlight, I shined on my chest, and they could see it was me, and I grinned. Then I unlocked it and let them back in. But I don't know why I do that. But I had the same feeling when I walked in here. About 10 minutes later, I walked in this room and I looked around, and people were sleeping all over. The chairs are moving around. Dogs had been noisy. I mean, cats, all kinds of things. I think there was that one parrot that I mentioned earlier was here. But as I stood in the back, it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. And something went through my head. I said, I wonder what would happen if I just did a little howling sound like a dog. Roop, 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 just a little yip. I didn't. But why does that go through my head? Maybe I need to be down on the Jordan River and saying, God, you need to forgive me for all the things that I do, at least the things that go through my head. Those things that go through my mind. And as I think about that, I wonder what was going through John's mind when Jesus stepped into the water. John said, I need to be baptized by you, yet you come to me. See, John knows who Jesus is. And he was about to be baptized in the Jordan River. You ever been baptized? How many have been baptized in the Jordan River? Just curious. Ooh, there's a few in bed. I baptized about 100 people from Suncoast and Jordan River. One year I was there, and some of you I baptized. Some of you, you know, the joke is, I'm going to hold you under as long as the sins are great. The more sins you have, the longer you get held underwater. Some, they need a snorkel. That's how long. But I remember being in the water for about 45 minutes. The water was 50 degrees. I came up out of there and I was like, man, I've been in the water too long. I was trembling for that. But the Jordan River is magical because Jesus was baptized there. I had a thought this week about that. One of the trips I was there many years ago was with a friend of mine, Mike Ross. Most of you don't know Mike very well, but he was on stage here 2 or 3 years ago with me. Mike was one of the original board of directors at Suncoast. He's been one of my mentors. He's 10 years older than I am, but A sad thing that happened was right before Christmas, I got a call from his wife saying he has some complications from a minor surgery, and he's had some serious complications, and he may not survive. And I flew to Indianapolis the day before Christmas Eve service to be in the ICU when they unplugged him from the machines, and my dear friend went from this life to the life beyond. And I have lots of stories about Mike. We tease each other. We're like brothers. I remember being at the Jordan River with him one year. He had a group, and I had a group, and we scheduled to be there at the same time. And we're looking at people being baptized. There's a little bridge. And as we're looking out, we see, and we honestly, we laugh at a lot of things that we probably shouldn't laugh at. But there was an Episcopal guy there. You know, Episcopalians, they don't baptize the way we do, with hold people under. So they had the whole group stand there on the side, one like a choir. And the water's 50 degrees. These Episcopalians are smart. He had a big, like a palm frond. He dipped it in the Jordan River and just kind of, I just sprayed them all. These guys are smarter than I am. And I was sitting there and I go, that's pretty interesting. But then he got down in the water because some of these guys that were from an aircraft carrier, a lot of these young military guys want to be baptized. And he brought them down in the river, and this Episcopal priest, I don't think had practiced as much with baptism as I had. I've been very proficient in baptizing since I had brothers. You learn the balance and the technique about this whole thing. But he had two guys, and I'm telling you the truth, he lost them. They floated downstream. He tried to get them to do it backward. He'd lose control. They'd float off. Now, I'm with Mike Ross, my buddy. We're laughing. We think this is a pretty good joke. Then he finally decided, I can't handle it this way. I'll do them. So usually we take somebody, you know, accept Christ, yes, and we simply put our hand on their chest, our arms are folded together, and we go backward in the water and come back up. He couldn't do that, so he decided, I'll just do it this way. Grab him by the back of the head and just dunk him like this. One military guy after the other. We're laughing again. Then I look over at my buddy Mike. We're laughing, having a good time. And all of a sudden, a bird poops right on his shoulder. Big splat. Gross. I said, you know, when Jesus was baptized here, the heavens opened, the Spirit of God descended like a dove. I said, I think that's what you got. I think that's God's authentication of your whole ministry right there. So it's a terrible thing to say, but I say terrible things. But we have a lot of fun. But I think about these cousins being there. And John said, you want me to baptize you? I thought you should baptize me. And John says, do not deter me. Jesus said to John, do not deter me. Don't argue with me. Do not try to change my plans. Even John, a great man of faith, suggested a change in Jesus' plans. What John was doing was setting the agenda for Jesus. Now let me put a personal thing. I wonder how many times we do that. How many times have you done that? Have I done that? I do that when I tell Jesus or God what to do. I do that when I play a game of thrones with God. When I attempt to set God's agenda, or I deter him, I tell him, these are my prayers, this is how I want my prayers answered. I deter God when I challenge him or question him, even in the storms of my life. See, when Irma was beating down on Sarasota, the news came out, Channel 40, and it said, Sarasota is right in the crosshairs. I heard some amazingly bad theology. Some of the theology I heard was from some Christian movie actor who said, he's flying out of Orlando, well, I'm out of here because this hurricane is God's judgment against all the sinful people in Florida. Can you imagine? All 20 million. And I heard others say, it missed Sarasota and my prayers were answered. It veered away. I said, good. So God so loved the affluent area of Sarasota that he sent the storm to Arcadia? Because he loves us and not them? Or maybe Punta Gorda or Port Charlotte. Well, I can understand them. Sorry, Greg. Anyways, but what about the storms that hit Cuba or Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic? Listen carefully. All these places are full of God's kids. It rains on the just and the unjust. How we respond to the storms and chaos is a lesson of life. How we battle for control and play the game of thrones is the question for us today. So, Pastor, what he's saying is simply this. We can freak out and pray the storm goes somewhere else, We can find peace in the middle of the storm, no matter what it is. See, John the Baptist didn't freak out, but he did try to tell Jesus what to do, and I'm guilty. How do I deter Jesus today? When I make a storm an issue where prayer controls the power rather than the opportunity to be Jesus in the storms of life. I've been in the church my whole life. I pastored for 40 years. But when I see my attitudes run people off, when judgmentalism kicks into the church, which is so easy, when I don't reflect the love of God, then I'm playing some kind of Game of Thrones. Simon Peter, one of Jesus' own disciples, when Jesus said, I got to go to Jerusalem and they may kill me, he said, we're not going to let that happen. And Jesus looked at one of his best friends and said, get behind me, Satan. You don't know what you're saying. You know, you have in mind the things, not the things of God, but the things of men. And I confess to you, sometimes I have in mind the things of men. But today I stand before you and say, wouldn't it be great this year if you and I let God be God in our lives? And we simply show the love of God to all those around us. Which leads us to the second thought today. And it's this. Who's the focus of our lives? Jesus says to John, I know you don't understand, but trust me. That's the right thing to do. Sometimes I think it's important for us to understand and just trust God. Which leads to the third thought. And it's this. What does it take to make God smile? I think it's interesting even to ask that question. See, I think God smiles when he sees Jesus' heart and John's obedience. When Jesus comes up out of the water, heaven's open, the Spirit of God descends like a dove. And he says, you are my son, chosen and marked by my love, pride of my life. That statement was not just for Jesus. It also was for John to realize I've been in the presence of something so much greater and my life has changed. When we realize that, I think God smiles and those around us smile too. See, I think it was wonderful when God spoke. I'm sure John was not arguing, saying, what about me? Are you pleased with me? He was in the presence of God, and that's a game changer. That's what I want for you this year. Can I pray for you? Father, thank you for your love. Thank you for the presence of Christ in us. Forgive us, Father, when there are times that we're just like these ancient mindsets. We try to do what's comfortable for us, what's in our best interest, and we forget that service and love and care and not judgment is what our community really needs. May we be agents of Christ today and make a difference to the world, we pray. In Christ's name, amen. Would you stand, please? I want to tell you a story in closing. And I want to start with the notes that you have in your hand. And here's the thought for the week. Become the one who does what you expect God to do for you. Recently, I was asked by someone, have you ever seen Jesus? You know my response is, I have. They said, well, when? Where? Let me begin. I've seen Jesus in the presence of Christ in the middle of a Hurricane Irma. We opened our doors to a community that was frightened. I've seen him when we gave away 23 cars or over 150 cars over the last few years. I've seen him in the face of everyone who gets a vehicle for free just because the community loves them. I've seen him when hundreds of children receive backpacks because of your generosity. I've seen him when men are changing the oil in cars every month. I've seen him as thousands of dollars flow through in gift cards and through other tithes and offerings as you give and be generous. See, I've seen the heart of God as people care for one another, helping one another throughout the difficulties of life. Now listen carefully. You may never hear this again. I see Jesus in you, even when you can't. His Spirit is there. He loves you today, and so do I. Keep it up. God bless you. Thanks for coming today.